When the sun baked the earth and the fields lay barren, everyone in town had already given up on the old Carter farm. Weeds choked the broken soil, the barns stood like hollow skeletons, and hope, if it ever lived there, had long since packed its bags. So when a struggling mechanic with oil-stained hands and a woman with more grit than gold dared to dream of saving it, the town didn't just scoff, they laughed. The first time the engine sputtered to life, it didn't roar, it coughed, wheezed, and shuddered like some ancient beast reluctantly waking from 100-year sleep. Still, to Emma, it was the sweetest sound she had heard in years. Beside her, Sam wiped his brow with the back of his wrist, leaving a dark streak across his forehead, a proud smile breaking through the exhaustion etched deep into his features. Sam had poured every bit of know-how, every scrap salvaged from junkyards and abandoned sheds, into breathing life back into that rusted-out relic. Nobody else believed it could even move again, let alone work. Yet here it stood, trembling but alive, on the brink of pulling its weight across the desolate fields once more. Emma swung herself up into the worn seat, her fingers gripping the cracked steering wheel, and glanced at Sam. His nod was small, but it carried mountains of unspoken encouragement. She pressed the pedal gently, feeling the machine jerk forward, lurching unevenly at first before finding a stubborn rhythm. Dust swirled beneath the wheels, wrapping them in a ghostly haze as they crawled toward the brittle, broken land that everyone else had abandoned. Every eye in the village watched from behind curtained windows and crooked porch rails. Some whispered, others shook their heads, a few chuckled openly. They saw two fools clinging to wreckage, trying to drag a corpse back to life. What they couldn't see, what they refused to see, was the fire burning inside Emma's chest, the unyielding determination in Sam's hands as he adjusted and readjusted every bolt and belt through endless nights. The early days were merciless. The soil resisted every effort like a stubborn mule, turning hard and unyielding under the blade. Rocks split the tiller teeth, belts snapped, the motor overheated. More than once, Sam had to haul parts back into his tiny workshop, sleeves rolled up to elbows, scouring through bent nails and twisted wire for anything that could be reforged into something useful. Emma learned how to mend broken hoses, patch leaking tanks, even weld tiny fractures in the battered frame under Sam's patient guidance. Money, they had none to spare. Every meal was another puzzle to solve, another handful of dreams stretched thinner than the threadbare clothes on their backs. Nights grew longer, darker, colder, but inside the workshop and across the battered fields, something unseen was beginning to stir, a quiet rebellion against despair. Spring edged into summer, and little by little, the fields began to change. Where once only dust rose in angry clouds, tiny green shoots pierced the earth, trembling at first, then standing tall under the relentless sun. The tractor, stitched together from discarded hopes and iron will, rumbled back and forth day after day, a heartbeat for the farm's slow resurrection. Meanwhile, the neighbors' laughter sharpened. They pointed from their porches, gathered in small clumps near the store or the post office, sharing exaggerated stories of Emma's stubbornness and Sam's hopeless tinkering. They bet on how long it would take for the pair to admit defeat, to pack their meager belongings into some second-hand truck and disappear down the cracked road like so many before them. Emma heard them, every word, every snicker. It burned like acid in her veins, but she smiled through it. Hands steady on the wheel, boots sinking into the furrows, dreams growing deeper roots than any ridicule could reach. Sam said little, he simply worked, tightening, adjusting, listening with a mechanic's ear for every hiccup and groan the old machine made. He understood better than most that faith wasn't loud, it was the steady turning of a wrench, the careful twist of a bolt, the silent prayer whispered over a smoking engine. August arrived heavy with promise. The skies ripened into deep, endless blue, and a slow hush fell over the village. The Carter farm, once written off as a wasteland, now shimmered with gold. Rows upon rows of wheat stretched toward the horizon, their heads bowing in the warm wind like thousands of tiny acknowledgments. The plants were strong, hardy, survivors born of the same grit that had driven Emma and Sam forward when everyone else had turned their backs. On the day of the first harvest, no one left. Children perched wide-eyed on fences, old men leaned heavily on canes, shaking their heads not in mockery but in wonder. The air buzzed with an energy no one dared name aloud. One by one, neighbors trickled down the dusty lanes, drawn as if by some invisible thread to witness what no one had believed possible. Emma climbed onto the tractor, the machine now steady, confident beneath her, as Sam walked the edges of the field, hands stuffed into his pockets, face unreadable except for the small, proud glint in his eyes. She started the engine, Not a cough this time, not a wheeze, but a strong, steady rumble that seemed to echo across every cracked board and dusty stoop in the village. The first row of wheat fell neatly beneath the cutter's blade, and a cheer broke out somewhere behind the fences. Then another. Then another. Applause, timid at first, grew louder, swelling until it wrapped around the fields like a summer storm, washing away months of scorn and doubt. Neighbors who had once mocked them stood now with hats clutched over their hearts, shaking their heads in amazement. Children waved, called out Emma's name, raced along the edges of the field with reckless joy. Emma smiled, not out of pride, not out of revenge, but out of something deeper, something only those who have fought through hopelessness and come out the other side ever truly understand. It wasn't just the wheat that had been resurrected. It was the land, the dream, the stubborn, foolish belief that hard work, faith, and a little bit of stubbornness could still change the world. Sam walked over, grease-smudged and smiling, and tipped an imaginary hat toward her. No words needed saying. They had done the impossible. They had sown hope where only emptiness had reigned. And now, they were reaping something far greater than any harvest. They were reaping redemption.